time, take a chance and walk through there. The old plat maps and the things they have are just a beautiful reminder of Lake Worth and where we've come from. So we took a tour there as staff, and I'm addicted to it. I'm a map guy. I love old maps. I have maps all over my house. It's neat to see how Lake Worth grew and where it started and how it came from. It's absolutely fascinating. So with that, yeah.
I'm sorry, if I may just take a second to chime into that. I know where I live, it's filled with accessory buildings like that, like the one you described. And they carry a lot of horsepower. I mean, single adults, newly married couples, really young families, retirees, I mean, every walk of life lives in these buildings, and it's an affordable way to live in what may not be an affordable neighborhood. So.
There's no plan for rebuilding any of those should any of those get destroyed. So I don't think we can build anything less than 800 square feet according to the city guidelines or plans.
Okay, we'll look into that. See what that is. Sir, I think somebody, yes?
I think Kathleen is being less than optimistic in her talking about appreciation rates. With all of the study guidelines and the studies guide, there is definitely a difference in appreciation rates between houses in historic districts and those that are not. And certainly historic districts that have been more established, like West Palm, historic districts, it's quite noticeable the differences in appreciation rates and costs between houses in the historic districts and comparable houses outside the districts. I think maybe Lake Worth, because we're a little later on the scale, we haven't seen that difference, the differentiation yet, but we will. And I mean, I think on an average it's 8 or 9% annual difference, and that's worthwhile for people to know.
Absolutely. And, you know, I don't think, I'm not going to speak for Kathleen, I don't think she was being less than optimistic. I think we're just trying to be very cautious. One of the things that we know is that there has not been a specific analysis done of the value, you know, the continued increased value and the retained value of the historic districts in Lake Worth. That question has been posed to us a couple times. Well, this may work somewhere else, but we don't know that that applies here. And there may be other factors too. The historic districts are closer to water, et cetera, et cetera. So we've talked about maybe in the future the city pursuing another one of these grants to maybe do that analysis, you know, as an idea. But you're absolutely right. I mean, especially if they've been invested. You know, I was telling Kathleen earlier, not to pick on anybody who lives out in, you know, Weston, but Weston doesn't have home tours. You know, nor do they have street. Well, I don't know if they have street lessons, but they.
But they have only made it to the garden areas and those types of things. So yes. Sorry.
I had a big question. Okay. Are there any? Yes, sir.
This process seems to be going very, very quickly. It's my question that it just started. You're looking to finish this in 3 months. At what point is the document available for? It's hard to make a comment until to see exactly what you're doing. Like, for instance, what's the purpose of the document? Is it for people that live here already and live in historic homes and historic districts to give them guidelines what they can do? And then what about, I thought that this was also going to be something that would be very useful for someone who's considering to move to Lake Worth and to find out. We're recent residents and we had hoped that there was something like that before we came in. We're delighted to be in the historic district, but it would be very helpful. And lastly, what we're learning, having gone through the process a couple of times, it would also be very, very useful to have resources. It's nice to have all these ideas, i.e., well, this is the kind of roof you need to do, and this is the kind of window or door or whatever the case may be. But it would be very helpful for the city to help people. I know you can't recommend vendors and companies, but it would be nice to have some resources because the homeowner spends a lot of time spinning wheels and meeting with so many different vendors only to find out that they're all wrong. They have it all wrong, they've got the wrong product, that kind of thing. And at the same time, way to make it truly a guide and information for not only us that live here, but people who might be considering. And then if you're going to approach a project, to truly make it useful and helpful in terms of not making mistakes and saving money and doing the right job. So just getting an idea of where this was. It seems to be growing very quickly, and I don't know when there would be some kind of regret that you could actually then see and make a little better comment on it. Because I found the presentation was
Okay,
very, very general.
thank you. Those are great comments. Let me just say this. The good news is that we have the next round of state grant funding has been awarded, and we have been granted that money to continue. So we have until July to get a draft to the state. And so what we decided to do is cut back some of the stuff so that we can get a really good base design guideline put in place with this round of funding, and then continue to work on it in the next year, and then we can fill it in more. And then, like, one of the things we talked about is use some of that money to develop the individual district maps, and then we can have a history of the district, how it came about, when it was established, you know, what types of houses are in that district. So that'll be part of a phase 2 project that we're going to be working on. As to the product comments, that's something we're working on now. We're trying to get a list of, okay, if you have this type of window, here's some common places you can do it. As a city, we can't recommend go to Home Depot and just buy it, but we can put together a suggested list of ideas. Another idea we're working on right now, and I can't tell you it's official, but we're trying to work with our attorneys to get a list of approved vendors who work with the city who know how to do historic restoration. Instead of kind of promoting one vendor, if we could have on our website, here's 10 vendors who work with us who know how to do historic restorations, who might be a good resource for you. So these are all things we're trying to build as we work through this process. So thank you for the comment. Yes?
I had a question about the styles versus materials. I'm brand new on the board, so I'll be learning an awful lot. But some of the things that have come before the board in the past, and I've been on the audience side, had to do with the fact that people wanted impact windows, and so the presentation is just sort of like what you just said, where you encourage everybody to try to repair their windows first. If they've gotten to that point, they're there to have windows replaced. They don't need the board's or the city's permission to repair a window to bring it back or to get the mullions. When I see that they do want to replace the window, they want to put hurricane windows in for protection and energy efficiency, it appears, you know, they have to go through a lot of hoops in order to do that if they don't meet a certain criteria. I know you're showing the different styles of windows, but when they say they want vinyl windows as opposed to aluminum windows, they're told that flat out they cannot have vinyl windows, even though they may be more energy efficient or things like that. Are the materials going to be addressed in this guideline, in this published guideline too, to help people out?
Yes, absolutely. Because I'll just say this generically. Depending upon what style of home you have and you're replacing the windows, aluminum may be a preferred material over vinyl, despite what the design of the window is. You know, and that may be the case on a number of things. That doesn't mean you're not allowed to ask for vinyl windows. That just means that you may not be carrying forth a positive recommendation from staff. So, but the point of this book and this guideline is to make that clear to you before you fall in love with vinyl windows, or you fall in love with a certain type of product that you want to put in your house. That at least it's made clear to you from the beginning, lean this way and it's going to be an easier process, lean this way towards these type of windows or doors that are not consistent with the style of your house. You may be on your own, you know, making that request without a recommendation of approval. I can't speak for staff, but I'm just telling you, you know, that's one of the things that we're thinking about. How do you clearly show, okay, if you're on this side of the ledger, these are all appropriate, and you may even get administrative approval, but if you're on this side of the ledger, you know, you may have to prove your case. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Well, let me give you for instance, I don't know if it's changed, but I believe that we do not allow vinyl impact windows here. So So if you want to go out and purchase windows, they might be a little bit more affordable, they might be a little bit more efficient, and they do basically the same job, and they look very similar to an aluminum window. There's some variances in the size of the pane that would come out that seem to be small. This is what I've heard from being in the audience.
I do not know that vinyl windows are prohibited in the city, in the historic districts of Lake Fork.
They are.
They are prohibited.
Well, they were. I don't know if it's changed. They are now. That's the type of thing that to see as a board member, I'm gonna wrap my head around.
Sure.
If that's something that is an approved product. You know, it meets all the criteria from Dade County and everything else, and the city would come out and say, okay, we don't want vinyl windows.
Well, that's why there's a board too, because there may be unique situations that need to be vetted, right? And so that's why you have a board to make those decisions. If you didn't have a board and it just stopped with the design guidelines, you wouldn't have that option to make your case.
And do the design guidelines operate for everything in front of the house or complete circle of the house, or in the backyard too, if it's not seen from the road?
So that changes from place to place. We're still discussing that. I think it's what's visible from the right-of-way. Exterior, including the rear of the house. Well, yeah, well, that's the other thing is that within a historic district, you've got buildings that are considered contributing and those that are non-contributing. And the contributing ones are the ones that are one of those primary styles.
Right. But, so therefore, the backyard is still considered historic.
It's reviewed.
And we have to have the same criteria as the front.
On a contributing structure. The question is the idea to make districts of the whole city? No, we are not here to expand the size of the districts, or we're not here to expand the number of districts. We're here to provide more information that applies to the existing districts. Right. And I don't disagree. And I'm sure that your staff would love to create additional districts too. Yeah. That is not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to provide a tool that clarifies, like I said earlier, what you can and cannot do within those districts. Were there? Yes, ma'am. Can we add screen doors to the guidelines? We have some that we've already provided, especially ones that are unique. Amy, maybe this is a question for you, Amy. Do you mind? A specific question, are we going to be adding screen doors to the design guidelines? I mean, we have a little in terms of, particularly if they're defining characteristics of the style.
I'm just thinking that it has specifically style. Seems like it should say, the doors and lights.
Right. No, that's an excellent point. You notice it specifically like with Art Deco stuff. In Lake Worth, you see a lot of beautiful Art Deco screens that have metal work in them, like in the shape of a stork or something like that. Yeah, we run through those. But the flamingo, the cool sort of 50s looking flamingo screen door, should go on a bungalow. You know what I mean? It's like cross-referencing and it's alluding to it. Somebody had, I'm sorry? A crocodile. Yes, sir.
Just for clarification, these guidelines will apply or be geared only for contributing homes in a historic district?
These guidelines will.
So the guidelines will apply to all homes in a district. Let me explain what that means. If you have a contributing home, you're under a tighter scrutiny of review. If you have a non-contributing home, we have a new set of approval matrix, if you will. It says in a non-contributing home, we will be a little less stringent on what is and is not required. On contributing homes, because they add value to establishing the character of the district, we want to have a little stricter evaluation. But the other point of these guidelines, and maybe it gets back to the other question, is maybe you have an historic house and the house you want to restore, but you don't live in a historic district. You're just passionate about restoring historic homes. This can be a resource for those people to say, you know what, I live west of Dixie, but I love my house, I love the style of it, I want to restore it. What's an appropriate style for you to put on so I don't have a Ford Mustang with a Chevy back end on it? You know, I like my Mustang, I want to keep it a Mustang, I like my favorite car, 65 Mustang. I kind of want to, you know, I was born in, America myself, I was born in 65, it's kind of my birth car. So if you are passionate about restoring a historic home and you want to look at this guideline can also then be a help for you to say, wow, that's really cool. Okay, that's what makes my house look unique and special. So it can be a tool for residents throughout the city. Any more questions? Yes?
You have some pretty clear listed styles up there, but we all know a lot of the houses in Lake Worth have been changed a lot over the years and don't fit into that specifically. So will you be developing guidelines on how those homes will be treated? But in addition to that, how to actually identify what they would be rather than simply the interpretation of a passing staff member?
Well, we are not going to be creating new styles, if that's what you mean.
No, what I'm talking about is houses that have been changed so much. They're in the historic district,
Right.
probably some are even considered contributing, but look nothing like their original structure at all, so they wouldn't fall into any of these neatly defined boxes. This is pretty clear what you have. If you have a house that fits that, here's the types of windows. I'm talking about all the ones that have been modified that are not so nice, cut and clean as these are.
Right. No, I
What
understand.
types of guidelines will there be to help those homes?
Yes, well, that home was originally something. And if it's a contributing structure, it was probably originally one of these styles, no matter how it's been changed over time. Now, you may have a sensitive owner who wants to sort of restore that to some extent back to where it was. Obviously, if there's additions and things, that changes things. But, you know, that's going to be the case in a lot of, there's very few pure examples out there, you know? So, I mean, that's why I think we're trying to show a range of what are acceptable replacements, you know what I mean? So it brings it closer to what the original was. And I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. No.
Yes or no? No, Applebee's got a beautiful house. It just happens to be more of an anomaly than my own house, where it's been added onto through the years. It probably started off as one of those, I don't like to call them vernaculars, but a really tiny little 1.5-story house, and just grew. You know, a house like mine was a bungalow house with brackets and everything, and then the wood siding got covered with faux stone. Brackets got taken off and kind of got updated to 1940s, but it's clearly not a 40s house. So, yeah, there are a few of these, and this is, and I think guidelines will help some people kind of identify the style.
So that's a good example. So say you have a house that was a bungalow, it was born as a bungalow. And then somebody came along at some point and had the bright idea to put faux stone on it and take the brackets off and try to turn it into some micro castle or something like that. You know, it doesn't resemble what it was born as. The guidelines are going to try to get you to take it back as close as you can. Maybe take that faux stone off, you know what I mean? If you're having dry rot in there or the wood's rotting, maybe get rid of the faux stone and replace it with siding, you know what I mean? So there is some restorative effort. I don't think, the guidelines aren't going to promote taking it further away from what the original was.
Just to add a little bit about that, one element of the guidelines that we are looking at adding is something that helps to sort of define the process that staff would go through when somebody might want to make changes to their property. In terms of looking at the historic property file to see what kind of documentation we have in there. We have a lot of original architectural drawings. Almost every property from, let's say, the 1930s or 1940s onward, we tend to have the original architectural drawings. So that's one of the first things that staff can bring out and sort of help you look through to see what elements are there in your house. If there were changes to the property over time, we often have documentation of that as well. So those types of elements paired together with the different style chapters, we can actually use to try to look at what elements on a house, even if the house has changed over time, we can still look at the overall massing, the height, the roof lines, the configuration of a lot of those different elements to figure out what style the house was, and then you can actually look at it to see what elements have changed over time. So we are trying to write into the guidelines to help understand that process and what different options that somebody would have whose house has changed over time, but they can use different historical data we have in different elements in the style chapters to actually be able to go through and figure out what their house might have looked like originally.
Yeah, no, that's helpful, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. I think one of the biggest complaints I know I hear in my neighborhood is that there are no guidelines, and I realize that's the purpose of what we're trying to do here. People go in and they're just told everything, they come out and say, well, this is just what staff wants me to do, and they're totally lost, bewildered, and just give up on it usually. So having something to go by, and what you just said is important. For someone to go in and know that staff has some guidelines that they're going by, rather than the person who works there this year says, I like this style, and the person who works there 3 years from now says, well, I like this style. It's too subjective. So that's what I think we want to see, something that we know we're being guided by and what we have to build. So appreciate it.
Absolutely, and what you're going to see too in all of the different style chapters is that Treasure Coast and Kathleen and everybody working on this project are doing a great job of really trying to define by style what those character-defining features are, so that it's not just what staff is saying is appropriate to that style. It's actually been clearly defined and laid out for everybody. What's indicative of the bungalow or the Art Deco style.
So there's a gentleman who was sitting in the back earlier. I think he's left now, but he made a point. He made 3 points. One is that are these to be used by residents who live in historic districts, or are these to be used by people who are moving in, or, and I figured the third point was, that it was also very important. Yeah, oh yeah, can we have a list of contractors, that sort of thing. You know, one of the things that I'm hoping is that the design guidelines, we've said this over and over again, provide clarity and predictability, because a lot of times, if you're a realtor, you may know this, people say, I really want to move into this area of Lake Worth, and they hear, oh my God, it's a historic district, I gotta run, I can't be part of this. I've heard all these horror stories from your neighbors, sort of coming in and saying no, So, staff or even realtors can present it and say, no, look, you can do all of these things. Like Kathleen was saying earlier, you're not prohibited. I own a 1924 house. And in 2008, we doubled the size of the house on a 40-foot wide lot in West Palm Beach. And, it was a very intense design review, but, we were able to do it. And so, I mean, you can do lots and lots of things. But, without the design guidelines, the rumor mill kind of takes over and perception takes over. So. All right, we have time for one more question. Does anyone have one? Yes. Yes, it will be online. It's not online now. That question was brought up earlier because it's not fully together. But yes, this will definitely be an online resource.
So thank you all for coming out tonight. I want to say that the PowerPoint, we're going to get posted on the website in the next few days. So you're going to go back through it and look at it. This whole process will have to go through the Historic Reservation Preservation Board, for a public meeting, and then it has to go to the commissioners for final adoption. So this is nothing that will just be done by staff and put in. We'll go through a very public process, and because you all are involved, we want to make sure that the neighborhoods that have historic districts in them know when we're taking these to these meetings, so you can hear and see what's going forward, so you can know what we're doing. Okay? Thank you guys for coming tonight. We'll be in touch.